I not only mentioned in my Hunter x Hunter video that I will do a Chimera Ant video, but also since I did my Yorknew City video, there is no way I'm ending up without doing a video about Chimera Ant, the legendary arc of Hunter x Hunter. Making this video has been one of the goal videos I always wanted to do, so here we go. Hunter x Hunter is famously known for their setup of the arcs. It's usually considered not only the best in Shonen but one of the best in anime period. Chimera Ant Arc is the only arc in the series that doesn't follow that at all. There is a purpose behind it. It's the only arc that is set up in the last minute of it, and the moment we go to the arc is the moment we elaborate on it. In other words, it has no pre-setup. You can consider Kai the pre-setup, but that will be a long stretch considering to the content of the actual arc. That is because Chimera Ant Arc is a very specific arc of Hunter x Hunter. In fact, it could be considered that single arc of Hunter x Hunter that could really well just be like its own series. Just Chimera Ant Arc. This arc is famously known as an incredible arc. Most people consider it as one of the greatest pieces of fiction ever. So this video on its own has a lot of hold on its back shoulders simply by being about this arc. An arc that has been discussed not only for the content and the characters but for the philosophy and the thematics over the years, because it's not only considered as an overall complex arc on the nature of the series, but also is just considered as great art. There is a lot that goes on into what makes this art great and how it works down to boil down the thematics and how everything together resembles the overall what Yoshiro Togashi was going for his story on Chimera Ant Arc. Chimera Ant Arc, to me at least, has always followed a double story. The first one is the personal. It's the story that we care about, the story that we gain to care about, and the story that we create through the journey. It's the story of our protagonists, the characters we root for, the characters we feel bad. And the second one is the larger picture. This usually includes the meaning of what the arc is actually about and the overall conceptualization of the characterizations, the progression and the fight. But what makes Chimera Ant Arc differently is that over time every plot point that is introduced as for the bigger picture of the arc just slowly becomes personal. It goes without saying that Chimera Ant Arc to me is an arc that Yoshiro Togashi constantly tries to do something out of the normal order of how to write a shonen arc, and constantly each point progressionally proves on that with the right talent and with the right ideas you can literally write anything you desire anywhere and any way you want, only if that idea makes sense to you. There is nothing wrong with following a pre-ordered formula, but there is a line between following a pre-ordered formula and making the heart of your series different, because frankly, without being disrespectful to any series or to any artist of any series, some of the newer shonen, to me at least, look all the same. I see the same story in all of them and people create heart in all of them. That's why these shonen work and that's why this demographic is so appealing. But when I see this arc specifically, it just reminds me of the potential that this demographic has. And now in the West, shonen has been treated as a genre for a while, which I know many people consider it wrong, but if you go by that way, it has to be my favorite because it always portrays the themes that I want to, the idealistic nature of the human mind, but I don't want it to be the same way every time. That is why this arc exists, and this is why people love it so much, especially when they understand it. Now, fun fact story which might motivate some people who are watching this video for the sole purpose of having a better grasp of the arc, which knowing my audience it probably won't be a lot of people, but assuming that this video has been somehow recommended to you and you are watching this to understand the arc better. Back when I watched Hunter x Hunter for the first time 5 years ago, Chimera Ant Arc was a very hyped up arc even then. I knew nothing about it, and when I went in I appreciated every single hype moment that was in. Every single fight moment, every single moment that made me went, oh my god, this is amazing, was appreciated by me and were some of my favorite moments in Hunter x Hunter. But yes, I will admit, I did not understand anything about it. When I first saw this, I did not came to the same conclusions about it as I come today. So you have to understand that a piece of fiction with a lot of meaning usually reflects your positions in life. Some people like some of the simpler stuff for the moment, some people don't, but currently with progression and after reading some of other mangas that really stuck out with me, that I consider complex and mature, I came to the conclusion that Chimera Ant Arc is just as them, and later on with watching other YouTube videos about it and after listening to people just ram about it all day because how good it is, I finally considered my own interpretation and grasp of it. And that is the point of this video. Here we go. Chimera Ant Arc is 61 episodes long. That takes 45% of Hunter x Hunter. So for such an enormous arc, it just came after Greed Island. We firstly get introduced to this huge arc from our protagonist, from the personal view of the arc, through one singular man called Kite. To talk about Kite's character, I got one of my closest friends, one of my most loyal and best supporters of the channel, my friend Mar from Dragon Ball Dad. I will link his channel in the description below, who is going to talk about Kite as a character. Here we go.
If you want to become an exceptional hunter, then this is the ideal training ground. From here on out, whether we win or lose, it's going to be hell. During these fights, I can't keep looking out for you. If you can't beat them, then you better go back, or you'll just be a hindrance. Damn, I got a bad roll. We are here today to talk about Kite, one of the most important characters in all of Hunter x Hunter. In fact, without Kite, Hunter x Hunter would have been a very different story. A young man with an affinity for animals, somewhat cut off from society, encounters a hunter. On learning Nen and getting his hunter's license, he embarks on an epic quest to find legendary hunter Jing. I think I'm talking about Gon, right? I'm in fact talking about Kite. Kite's story has extraordinary parallels to Gon's, and it's no understatement to say without Kite, Gon's journey would never have happened. Not much is known about Kite's backstory, but the 2011 adaptation did attempt to fill in some gaps. Basically, Kite encountered Jing, Jing became his role model, Kite learned Nen, passed the hunter exam and set out to find Jing. This quest is described as the hardest hunt any hunter could ever undertake. This mission led Kite to Whale Island, where he encountered, by chance, or by Jing's plan, Gon. This happened way back in chapter 1 of the manga, in the opening episodes of the original anime, but not until around episode 70 of the 2011 adaptation, which is probably the adaptation's biggest weakness. You see, this chance encounter that we get in a tiny little flashback in the 2011 version, it's what sparks Gon's curiosity in his father. Before this point, Gon believed his father to be dead. Kite saves Gon from a fox bear's mother, then scolds Gon for his ignorance and bemoans the fact that he needlessly had to take the life of an animal. In penance, Gon vows to take care of the fox bear cub. Hunters have an affinity for animals. This prompts Kite to ask, who is Gon's father? Learning it was in fact his role model and teacher Ging, the man he respects the most, Kite informs Gon that his father is still alive and begins to talk about just what an amazing man Jing is, eventually giving Gon Jing's hunter's license, thus beginning Gon's curiosity in his father and Gon's journey. Years later, after Gon plays Greed Island, another link the two characters have, Gon is reunited with Kite, thus beginning the legendary Chimera Ant Arc. In this arc, Kite takes Gon and Kahlua under his wing, Gon looking in amazement whenever Kite talks about Jin. Kite's decision to mentor Gon and Killua, despite the harsh environment, is one that ultimately plays its part in Kite's demise. Gon's reaction is completely justified when you look at what Kite is to Gon. Kite is not only his teacher, not only a friend, not only the closest link that Gon has to Jing. Kite is very much a father figure to Gon. He is very much the only father figure Gon has ever known. Interestingly to me, Kite is more of a father figure to Gon than Ging is, where Ging is more of a father figure to Kite than he is to Gon. Kite's death will undoubtedly be one of the biggest moments in Gon's life. His first loss being his only tie to Gin, and at this point the only father figure he ever known, and being a loss that he blames on himself, is absolutely heartbreaking to see. Kite as a character is somebody who never knew his home. I think this manifests in his desire to nurture those around him just like Jin nurtured him. We see them doing this with the non-pro hunters he surrounds himself with, as well as with Gon and Killua despite the harsh circumstances. Kite is somebody who can come across cold and sometimes very stern, but this all comes from his desire to protect life. He respects life and loves animals and hates taking one unless it is absolutely necessary. Kite's decision to train Gon and Killua just as Ging wanted during the Chimera Ant Arc is something that he learns a lesson from. It's interesting to me to think if he had gone alone, he maybe would have been able to make it in time to prevent events happening like they did. It is after all Gon and Killua's failure to kill Rabbit that introduced the ants to Nen. Overall, Kite is one of the most important characters in the series. He is not only the father figure to Gon, he is not only the man who began the journey, not only the man that caused Gon to first experience loss, he is the man who sets the example of just what a hunter should be. After all, not only to Gon, but to us as viewers, he is the first hunter that we come across. The failure of the 2011 adaptation to do this early in the series is honestly something that really makes him less significant than he should be. To Gon, Kite is the perfect role model. This is expressed when Kite is quite clearly dead to most people. Gon's belief that there is no way that he could lose to somebody like that. Kite's rebirth is not something I really want to touch on upon this video because it's not the greatest thing in the world to me, but I think Kite as a person would actually really enjoy coming back part Ant. I do believe that, and I do see the joy that him and Gon reuniting and that self-blame that Gon had being something that is removed, being a big part in Gon's development. So to summarize, Kite to Gon is the ideal hunter. He is the link to Jing. He has so many similarities to Gon that it is quite reasonable to believe that Gon will be very like Kite when he grows up. And I think Jing saw the similarities in his greatest student to what he would want his son to be like. I really love the character. I think he is so interesting. I love that he is somebody who has this natural affinity with nature where he knows that it is important to only take lives at the right moment. I think Kite is one of the greatest characters in the series, and his crazy slots is one of the best Nen abilities. I really love it. I love the ongoing joke of, damn, it's a bad roll, but it is always the perfect one for the situation. Kite's loss will be something that Gon forever feels. It was the biggest, most heartbreaking thing that could possibly happen to the character at that point in time. Kite to me is basically Gon once he has life experience and once he is less naive. Kite always places the need of others beyond the need of himself, whether that be animal or the upbringing of one of his students. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mark, for covering Kite. Like I said, I will link Mark's channel in the description below. He is great. To continue, Kite is meant to represent the personal aspect of Chimera Ant Arc. He's the link between our world and Chimera Ant Arc's world. Our world being told through the eyes and the story of our protagonists Gon and Killua, which are directly linked to the Chimera Ant's events through Kite. Particularly shown in the Chimera Ant world is the idea that hunters are extremely individual people, not only in concept but in abilities and everything in between. So by the end of the Chimera Ant arc, we see hunters that live out their life without even caring, knowing, or really doing anything about the Chimera Ant's events, despite necessarily being important in a way. But we will get to that later on, because necessarily that is a great plot point to something completely irrelevant, which I'm gonna point out later on. Now let's talk about the antagonistic force of Hunter x Hunter's Chimera Ant arcs, which are the Ants. For the most of part 1 of Chimera Ant arc, we follow Kai's journey and Gon's and Killua's journey to disclosure the Ants, which later on becomes even more than that. But some people might consider the first half of Chimera Ant arc boring or such, mainly because it doesn't follow the correct journey of the final showdown of our protagonist and antagonist, but mostly it follows the journey of coming to there. First of all, what I absolutely love Togashi for doing is that, differently from any shonen arc with a final goal, with a final arc, is that he actually made faces, personalities, and feelings for the main antagonistic army. The hardest thing, period, to write in any piece of fiction that is categorized under fantasy is making the army have faces, have personalities, each of them to be mattered for and each of them to be cared for. It's extremely hard to write in the protagonistic forces and nevertheless to write in the antagonistic sides. Most of the Shonen Jump's big final armies are just faceless monsters, and this doesn't talk just for Shonen Jump. Even some of the greatest fantasy series of all time have that, and necessarily it's not a problem. But for Togashi to write an army that represents the antagonistic force of this arc, and each of them to have a face and personality and something to be mattered for, is not only incredible of his part but genius. The Chimera Ant arcs are an extremely complex human conflict, because necessarily they get the intelligence and later on their manpower from humans themselves. So like I mentioned before, yes, they are an extremely complex human conflict, and later on we clearly see that it's not a fight between Chimera Ant arcs and humans, it's a fight between people, the fights between themselves, which the moral ambiguity of this arc is impaired with Yorknew City. Yorknew City is extremely more humanizing and extremely more personal, but when I say about this is just genius, considering the stakes that this arc has. The stakes being the entire world. First of all, let's talk about the actual thematic of the arc. There is a scene later on in Chimera Ant arc that pretty much sums up the entirety of this arc. That scene is so underrated, and it pretty much can wrap up everything that is the bigger picture of the arc.
ありと何一つ変わらない。いや、それ以上に。バラには毒があった。開花の瞬間、大量にまき散らされるバラの毒が類似する他のものより優れている。
My father always worked with movies and directing them, producing them, sometimes helping with writing and stuff like that. He's pretty much involved with that. So when I was a kid, when we watched movies that he liked, he always liked to do the differentiation between them, and how he did it is, these are the movies that are philosophically great, these are the masterpieces on their own, and these are the movies that are enjoyable, the movies that everybody will like, including you, including everyone. And then later on I came to the conclusion that there is a mix between those two movies, and those kind of movies are movies that not only are great that everyone will enjoy, but also are philosophically complex and great movies, and those are considered as the best movies, the masterpieces of their own. And that is how I feel about Chimera Ant Arc as a whole. A lot of people like to talk about the first half of Chimera Ant Arc as it is boring or something like that. Reality of the situation is that the Chimera Ant Arc builds slowly its pieces. That's why the explosion comes later on is so satisfying. Chimera Ant Arc wouldn't be as good as it wasn't slow in the beginning. In fact, it's rare to find people who hated the entire arc. Usually people just don't like the first part, but they love the second part. But in my opinion, they like the second part because of the existence of the first part, because the build-up is what creates beauty. But sometimes it can get a bit boring to watch through. People are entitled to their opinions. The Chimera Ant Arc introduces a lot of character. It's almost like we are following an entirely new story, like I mentioned before. It is pretty ironic, but considering the length of the arc, pretty apparent that the existence of these completely new characters makes sense. It's kind of funny because statistically speaking, the entire characters we get in the Chimera Ant Arc are equal to the entire cast of Hunter x Hunter before it. That's how much characters we get introduced on. The characters we get introduced on can be easily classified into two categories: the protagonist characters and the antagonist characters. I mean, their writing and their existence in the arc is extremely complex, so just classifying them as that will probably not do it justice. To start up with the antagonist part, some of the Chimera Ant Arcs that I spoke earlier before actually get pretty much personalities and goals of their own and character goals. Some of them accomplish. This is meant to differentiate them from the hunters, but as well as to in first hand see the glance of the normalization of everything going around, because after all, like I mentioned before, their intelligence and manpower comes from human themselves. So in a grand scheme of Chimera Ant Arc, it always was a human versus human conflict. There are a lot of new characters that we get introduced on from the antagonistic sides, Chimera Ants, that make the appearance in the beginning episodes. I'm not gonna talk about all of them because obviously I'm not even interested to talk on all of them, but some of the most prominent one that made appearance that sticks with us in our minds are Ramot, which obviously we remember him because his character goal is to be the one Chimera Ant Arc which firstly gets this no new power called as Nan. His character goal is also to finish up the character goal of Killua Zoldyck, which we touch on later on. Killua is one of the greatest characters that I would say in anything that I ever had the pleasure of watching, so those moments later on are just incredible. Again, we have a lot of Chimera Ant Arcs that are quote-unquote important, but to remember some is Cheetu, the fight with Morel, and later on the great moment that we get to his finally, Leol, also the great fight with Morel, and more, which we're gonna talk later on. Some of the motivations between some of the Chimera Ant Arcs, especially towards the end of the arc, are classified between this new goal of them to find Gyro behind Gyro. Gyro is meant to be this hidden figure of a leader that is pretty much caring of his people. To me, that is always meant to represent the spirit of the arc itself as what these antagonists strive for, because besides the royal gods and of course the king himself, those are unaccepted characters in the ability that they will never live their life like these can after the arc finishes, so it makes sense why that goal would be dominant to their characteristics. Now let's talk about the protagonist sides of the new characters, which I got my friend Hadriegon, which is one of my closest supporters for years and a good friend of mine. Check out his channel, link in the description. He's gonna talk about the new characters which are in the protagonist side. Here we go.
Hey guys, in this portion of the video, I'll be looking at 4 underrated characters all introduced within the Chimera Ant Arc. each of the role of enriching Hunter x Hunter as a whole by expanding the variety of characters in the story and help the development of both Gon and Killua. These 4 characters are Shoot, Knuckle, Morel, and Nove. So I'll be looking at some of their key attributes and how they contribute to the Chimera Ant Arc from start to finish. So, to begin with, Shoot McMahon. Shoot, as a pupil of Nov, is a strong Nen user and has earned his way to be in the position he's in. Yet Shoot's main attribute is that of deception, and he encapsulates that in his very essence, in every sense of the word, as he is deceiving to Gon, Killua, and us, the audience, alike. That being on a physical level by maintaining a strong appearance and keeping his composure, whilst in reality he is anxious and at times even scared of the tasks he has been given. He is also mentally deceiving, and to none other than himself, by seeing himself as a coward when he is so much more than that and has lots of talent he just isn't aware of as of yet. However, this changes later on in the arc, so in the short, Shoot at the beginning of the story is a character with lots of untapped potential and room to grow mentally. Shoot helps out Killua's character growth in both facing off against him and to aid the audience to see just how human Killua's struggles with anxiety are, as Shoot has similar anxieties himself. There are many parallels between Shoot and Killua, in particular those being the way they both master their uncertain confidence in themselves by putting on an appearance and the manner in which they both reached a pivotal awakening in their lives thanks to Gon. This leads me to Shoot's defining character moment, being his reaction to Gon's bravery during the palace invasion. Before this moment, Shoot had always relied on Knuckle to lean back on, but seeing Gon face adversity by running straight towards the threat up ahead changed Shoot. In that moment, Gon started Shoot's confidence in himself, completely changing the prior mindset he had held before. Shoot was so inspired and touched by Gon that he too faced adversity straight in the face by giving his all in his fight against Yuppie. My favourite thing about this excellent piece of character development is that us, the audience, are shown just how great Gon is through the eyes of Shoot, seeing this young boy react to more tenacity than anyone else in the Chimera Ant Extermination Squad, marching forwards with no fear as a role model and inspiration to those around him. Secondly, let's talk about Knuckle Bine. Knuckle, as a pupil Morel, was always taught to be the kindest, and this leads into his main character attributes, being that of his kindness. In fact, Knuckle's motive behind wanting to join in the Chimera Ant mission was to see if there's any way he could help save them. This comes from Knuckle's love of all life, from nature to animals and people alike. His love of people is shown when he faces Gon, and instead of going hard on him, he helped Gon with giving him advice and as much time as he needed to train to face off with him, whilst only going all out when they were on similar levels and Gon had a chance of winning. In the end, he ends up as somewhat of a mentor figure for Gon. So, for Knuckle, his defining character moments takes place when he sees Shoot on the floor, just having had Yuppie turn his back on him and disrespect his warrior code. Once again, Knuckle shows just how kind he is by granting Shoot's wish for him, and again his ability to spread love is shown when he gains admiration for even his enemy, in this case being Yuppie. Knuckle shows his true priorities when he sacrifices the mission to save Morel from death, showing that he values life and his friends above even the mission itself. Knuckle enjoys being around dogs. He admires Morel. He respects Gon and loves Shoot. In the end, Knuckle is the most loving Hunter x Hunter character of all. So now onto Morel Makonasi. Morel is a 1-star hunter that is about to become a 3-star hunter, and he is highly regarded as one of the Hunter organization's finest, best hunters. His key attribute is his persistence, as he shows throughout the arc going from battle to battle. Morel is based off the real person known as Ramo Nakajima, who was famously known for never taking off his sunglasses, just like Morel. He is also based off Ichikara Goherman, a Japanese folk hero who is emotionally motivated to help those in need, as shown in when Morel swore to help Colt as a child of the Ant Queen. But why am I mentioning all this? Well, it's because both of these fictional and real characters are both extremely persistent, which leads into Morel's key character traits. Morel also impacts Gon's character by testing his motivation and dedication for training kites, and he also acts as a backup to the entire squad of hunters, as he never gave up for the many fights he had, and acts as almost a respectable father figure towards his younglings. Morel is willing to sacrifice himself for the bigger picture, showing his dedication towards his friends. And this is being shown when he was ready to just give up his life for the mission before Knuckle came in. So now moving on to Nove. Now we don't actually know Nove's second name, but Nove is a very ironic character in the series. That being the first time we see him, when he came in a Netero, he was educating Killer about how weak he was and how pathetic he was. He pretty much just ran away. But then we find him doing the same himself. He comes off as calm, collective, even arrogant. He's a bit full of himself, you know, and he lectures Gon and Killer about their experiences. Actually, inadvertently ends up helping them a lot to really level up mentally. And reality check just, you know, helps them move on. And talking about reality checks, he gets a massive on himself, as when he's on a mission, Chimera Ant Palace, he stumbles upon Poof's aura, and it scared him so much that it activated his fight or flight mode in his brain, and his brain chose flights. And he really struggled with that, and he had one of the most human and realistic moments in the series when you saw Nove just completely breaking down in utter fear of what's going on. But to the strength of his character, Nove perseveres through all this. He is forsaken by his fear, but then he redeems himself, and is actually one of the big reasons why Gon is still alive.
Thank you for this segment, it means a lot, Hadriegon. Check out his YouTube channel as well as his Twitch channel, he streams on Twitch as well. And here we go to the next segment of the video. Now we are gonna talk about the main antagonist force of Hunter x Hunter. These four characters are some of the most liked characters in the series, not only in the series but are typically known as some of the greatest written antagonists in manga, and I don't really need to explain this. We're gonna start from the Royal Guards. I already mentioned in my Hunter x Hunter videos what I think about the Royal Guards and how is my individual interpretation of them. To repeat in simple words is that Pito represents loyalty, complete loyalty to a singular person, respect for everything they do, to the individuality of it. Pito served Meruem. Yuppie represents development that only can be gained by experience through meeting and camaraderie other human beings, experience through emotion and direct contact. And Sharapoof represents fascination, the fascination of an idea or what something or somewhat mean to someone, and the complete ignorement of everything in between, the absolute ignorement of everything in between. I'm sure you heard all of these words for the Royal Guards 100 times in 100 different YouTube videos, even in my own, but now I will create a different interpretation of them that I believe it to be the thing meant to it. To me, all the Royal Guards together represent Meruem and his character. Meruem is the king, but he's more than just the king. Meruem has deep loyalty and regard for his destiny, the destiny to rule the world. He acknowledges that destiny and has respect to it and has to offer something to the ants, and the importance of him to the ants is absolute. That sounds like someone? Yes, that's exactly like Yuppie, but with a progression of him and with interactions to meeting other humans, he changes, slowly changes in emotion and allowing humans to more and more slowly respect them. And that change also happens in Yuppie. Meruem also has individual respect for humans, like he would respect Komugi, but as well as he would respect later on Netero. That respect resembles Pito and her determination and absolute loyalty to Meruem. Meruem also has this twisted idea on his head of what he should become. Later on when he fought Naturo, saying that, sure, I will allow the humans who deserve to live, but the rest will be used as food and only the ones that I judge as to live will be kept in different camps, which again is very reminiscent to Poof, because essentially despite the human change that Meruem went through, he's still the king and he still feels the absolute need to carry out the ant's existence in him. He was born, it is his destiny, and it is his fascination to be the king of the world, the same way that Poof has the fascination for everything. So yes, I do believe that in a deep cycle of philosophical meaning, Togashi actually meant to do this. And by this I mean Togashi meant to make the characters exactly how we see them. All three of the royal gods and their characteristics all can be seen in Meruem himself, and that is my interpretation of it. My favorite royal god, like I mentioned before, is Poof, because the individual charisma of him and the individual personality we see throughout the Chimera Ant Arc is absolutely beautiful to see. Extremely seeing the fascination in Scream, and seeing a character like him to be worked up in such a story not only makes him quote unquote the only villain of the arc, but also makes an absolute incredible parallel to the other antagonists of this arc and makes the direct conflict of the story, but as well as we can see the complete loyalty of Poof crashing on with his idea of fascination and what it really means to the last moment of his breath to completely serve the king, and as well as his fascination idea that will go throughout the story to not only overthrow the idea of what Meruem thinks at the moment, to only see his biggest picture in the head. Poof is a very broken character, and it is incredible to see such a written character in screen. As well as I mentioned in my Yorknew City video, that every single one of the Phantom Troop members has one defining moment that reflects their personality, name power and character. Some of the Phantom Troop members already have that defining moment or moments already during the Yorknew City arc, but some of them get it during the Chimera Ant arc. It's a very cool feature to see it, as well as some of the minor antagonistic forces of the Chimera Ant arc get defeated by the Phantom Troop. As well as we get this. Anyways, another very cool important things that happened during the second and the final part of the Chimera Ant Arc is the whole underground thing. And to discuss the underground part of the arc, I got my very good friend Shonen Ouji from the channel Shonen Ouji to discuss it. Check out his channel, I will link a link in the description. The mic is to you, Ouji.
The beauty of the Chimera Ant Arc is how it explores the human experience from different angles. For example, Pito and the Royal Guard serve as ants that slowly become more capable of human emotion, while Gon and Netero show us how humans are capable of incredibly dark acts. But we also meet lots of ants like Welfine and Colt, whose past selves influence their personalities and decisions. This is most notably explored through the characters Ikalgo and Palm. With Ikalgo, we get an ant whose human personality persists even when he does not consciously remember his human life. We see this through his inability to needlessly kill, his overwhelming loyalty, and his ability to put his life on the line for his friends. He also leaks drip, but that's a story for another video. Ikalgo is tasked with venturing into the underground and rescuing Palm. Already this is a testament to Ikalgo's loyalty, because even though he has no idea who Palm is, he's willing to go rescue her, and he's even pretty upset when he finds her message and has to assume she's dead. This is when Ikalgo faces off against Bravada, or Blaster, or Bolster. You know what, you can call him the Crab Man, just know it's the guy with the crab and the gun and all that. I don't know why they had to go change his name and make it confusing, just, it's the crab guy. Anyway, Ikalgo manages to trap Bravada and knock him out with the sleeping gas, but he's unable to kill Bravada even though he knows this is probably the smartest thing he could do. This speaks to Ikalgo's good character and his unwillingness to needlessly kill like the other ants. But soon after this, Ikalgo is confronted by Welfine, and this turns out to be a very different situation. As he suffers severe and numbing pain from Welfine's centipedes, Ikalgo is able to endure and shoot Welfine again and again because he would rather let himself die like a dog than sell out his friends. Or die like a squid? Octopus man, I should say? I don't know, you get the picture. So what does all of this mean? Well, with these events, we're given an ant who shows to be more human than anything else. He may be an ant, but his human experience and personality is so strong that it actually influences him more than his ant side. While Welfine and other ants are able to kill without a second thought, Ikalgo's honest character prevents him from killing without good reason. So with Ikalgo, we get an example of an ant whose strong human side clearly influences his behavior despite his ant body. And we know this because when Palm is captured, the royal guards specifically go out of their way to toy with her memories and human self. As a result, Palm turns into a character who is clearly conflicted between her human and ant sides, unlike Ikalgo. Palm had tried to kill herself so she wouldn't be caught by the ants, but unfortunately, the ants capture her and transform her body. Specifically, they cut the tie between her human memories and her emotions. We see the effect of this experiment when Palm attacks Killua and clearly wants to kill him, unlike Ikalgo, who was only fighting for the sake of his friends. Now, the Royal Guard were banking on this experiment to work, because if it did, it meant they could manage to do away with human emotions while still producing strong soldiers. Fortunately, Killua is able to help Palm regain her human side, but even so, we see that Palm is still very much in conflict with her ant side and her human side. Later on, Palm and Ikalgo decide to hide Komugi underground to bait out Meruem. This is when we see an interesting struggle with Palm. Meruem reveals that Palm doesn't have to fight anymore because the humans have already won, appealing to her human side. Even so, Palm doesn't buy his story and calls him out for all of his killing. When Meruem bows to show his true intentions, we see Palm's ant side as she begs the king not to lower himself. This is when Palm agrees to give Komugi's location, on the condition that she can watch the king's last moments. Now, the logical conclusion is that Palm does so she can confirm Meruem's death. It's also likely that, as an ant, she wanted to see the king through to the end because of how important he was to the race. While it's not clear which was more important to Palm, you can certainly make the argument either way. Regardless, it's clear that Palm had a conflict of identity between her human side and her ant side because of this experiment. She was able to retain her human personality, but her new ant body led her to give in to Meruem's last wish. So same question as before. Why should we as readers or viewers care about any of this? Well, these two show us that part of being human is that we are more than our physical self. We're also the sum of our memories and our experiences. Like Nen, a stronger personality and resolve leads to a stronger individual. Ikalgo had a strong sense of loyalty from his human life, and so this strong loyalty translates into his ant life and leads him to act more like a human and less like an ant who mindlessly kills others without thought. Palm also had a strong character as a human, however the experiment from the Royal Guard places her in an ant body that conflicts with her human emotions. So in the end, we learn that a person is defined by the depth of their character. A person with a strong character will persevere through adversity, and their emotions and experiences will transcend their body. When their character is subdued or removed, they can never again be who they once were.
That was a great feature to the video. Thank you so much, Shonen Ouji. Like I said before, I will link his channel in the description below. Check it out. Moving on, the purpose of this entire video was to highlight that the Chimera Ant Arc is incredible in every way possible. But many of the hype beast shonen anime fans, aka the majority of the community, only talks about and appreciate the last few episodes when they talk about Chimera Ant Arc. That is why I refrain to talk about them in a big matter and only will address them in the in this part of the video. They are so overly discussed that many people relate the entirety of the Chimera Ant Arc just on these moments, which I don't blame because they are incredible. I'm talking about Meruem vs Netero is highly regarded as the greatest fight in anime. And you know what? I agree. It is genuinely incredible. Just the sheer understanding of this fight needs a lot of intellectual... Sorry, I can't do that. I'm trying to make this funnier, but I'm gonna start laughing in a bit. Like I mentioned in my Hunter x Hunter video, Meruem was never going to conquer the world. The whole point of the Rose miniature bomb was to point out that it was a small bomb and it was produced very fast. In other words, Meruem would have never had a chance at conquering the entirety of the world, and proves humanity's malice. In a way, with Netero's last words, I believe that Yoshiro Togashi was trying to say that the only reason why we humans are infinitely bound to the cycle of evolution and will go further and further in life is because of our sheer inner malice and why we want to be more and more each time. I always believe that when people say that we are inherently good, I believe that it was a selfish way, because I don't think that. And it's okay if I don't think that, because after all, our malice is what makes us special in this world. And yeah, episode 128 is just incredible. The bigger picture of Chimera Ant Arc really becomes personal, like I mentioned before, and we can see that in the second moment, hype moment in episode 131. And this episode is just intense. The point of this episode is to point out the flaws of the naive mindset a shonen protagonist has. All the other characters in shonen simply get easily out of their situations, in my opinion. But Gon is the only shonen protagonist that I have seen that actually has the flaws a character with his naive mindset and his age should have, with his powers in hands. No one man should have all that power, okay? Also, it's a great duality. It's a complex duality. I mean, I don't need to speak about episode 131. It's just the build-up is there. We get the satisfaction. It's amazing. I hate when people talk just about these 3 episodes, when in reality the entirety of the Chimera Ant Arc is just as good. And episode 135 is just incredible. When I see this scene, I genuinely think it's the most emotional scene in the anime. And if you ask my honest opinion, it's the most emotional scene in shonen, because all of these episodes represent satisfaction. The build-up, the setup, and the satisfaction. In fact, I'm not that mad when people talk about just this episode, because it proves that the build-up and the setup was so great that people only focus on the satisfaction, which is human-like. But don't forget the build-up and the setup, because all of the Chimera Ant Arc is good, okay? All of it is good. Must mention that the last few episodes of the Chimera Ant Arc, which in my recent rewatch when I watched it, I found it so fascinating. They were about the final moments of redemption for some of the characters that we have seen do bad stuff, some of the chimeras, and they set up with a goal to find this mysterious leader called Gyro. And if Togashi wasn't Johnny Joestar right now, he would have been written one of the best manga arcs of all times. But now Togashi is being Johnny Joestar. But I don't care, we still got Hunter x Hunter. Anyway, that was it for this video. I am so glad I had to make this video. This was one of my dream videos to make. I am glad that I got 3 of my close friends to join in the video and help me do it. Check out their channels in the description below. I know really lot has been happening around the world since the last time I uploaded a month ago, and I don't really need to explain this, and I know I'm putting in the end of the video, but I'll just leave some links in the description for some Black Lives Matter petitions. I talk about this on Twitter all the time, and I don't need to get political in here at all. Just be a good human being and sign the petitions below. Donate if you can as well. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe. I got some new stuff planned and I am enjoying stuff that I'm watching right now, so it's good. The life is good. Life is good, man. Just focus on yourself. Love you all. See ya.